Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about the secret stories of Dungeons and Dragons. All right, so I am a dungeon master. You are a dungeon master. I am a dragon master. You are a dragon master. Okay, what is a dragon master? Dragon master is the correct term, in my humble opinion, for Dungeons and Dragons player. I am retiring the term Dungeons and Dragons player. It is too small. It is inappropriate. It is wrong. Dragon Master is the correct term for the 4 people who sit at the table and each run a player character. So Dungeon Master, player character, and I have a link below for if you're like, wait a second, what do you mean Dragon Master instead of player? I have a whole video on it, link below. All right, today I want to talk about the secret stories of Dungeons and Dragons. So Dungeons and Dragons is 50 years old right now, and it is under high strain, high use. And what I mean by that is we're reaching a point in we're really reaching a point in Dungeons and Dragons history where people are doing some extensive things with it, real powerful things with Dungeons and Dragons. Certainly happening at my table, and I know it's happening at your table too. So let's talk about the stories that get told, right, with Dungeons and Dragons. So first of all, let's talk about the bog standard story. Dungeon Master prepares a story and they bring it to the table. That story is written, they write it on a piece of, this is an analogy, but this is really what happens. The Dungeon Master writes a story. Actually, they write 3 stories. This is the way I do it. I write 3 stories. And then I lay those pieces of paper on the table, figuratively, and I slice them apart. Right? So that they can be just thrown in the air as confetti, right? Now, I bring them in, pieces of plastic, but the moment the player pulls, the story can fall apart, right? So I bring 3 stories to the table, okay? And and never once, they never happen, right? The Dungeon Master brings 3 stories to the table. The Dragon Masters come in, and with their player characters, they adjust the story, right? They pull it into new directions. That happens at any table where the Dungeon Master doesn't railroad, okay? So that is the bog standard Dungeons and Dragons story, okay? But there's more, okay? One of the secret stories is those 3 pieces of paper, right? Those 3 stories that I wrote out that the Dragon Masters never see. That's important. That is a story that only the Dungeon Master ever saw, okay? Now, bad Dungeon Masters will tell those stories to their Dragon Masters, right? The people who run the player characters at their table. That is bad form. I've seen many Dungeon Masters, and they're like, oh, I actually wrote it this way. Never show them behind the screen. Wizard of Oz it, okay? Schmuck DMs tell people the stories that wrote. The best DMs keep that stuff secret. Keep that shiznizzle secret. All right, so these are the secret stories the Dungeon Master never shows you, okay? But it goes further. I have engaged in secret storytelling, right? So I've run story arcs at my table, right? 1, 3, 7 sessions that the Dragon Masters experience at my table. I'll take that same story and I'll run it at conventions. Okay. Now the thing is, other Dungeon Masters don't do this, but I do. That story is being presented to other convention players. In my notes, I am taking down. I have a log of every player who has ever run any character underneath me. I get the class, the name, and the species. I don't track the backgrounds. I don't think it's important enough. And so that is what I will capture, right? And what what in my head, or actually written, what I record is that this is another instance of a branching experiment, a magical arcane experiment that is grounded and is being run through Strixhaven. So even though I'm running the same material for a different group of Dragon Masters, that is a secret story that they are getting to interact with, right? And I know that all of this fits within the Dungeons and Dragons realm, right? And that those stories are being told concurrently. Different Dragon Masters are running different player characters, but it's all happening, right? And it's part of this Strixhaven magical arcane experiment. The Dragon Masters don't know that. They don't know that. That is a secret story, right? Goes further, okay? One of my Dragon Masters, when one of my campaigns fell apart, I know for a fact they took one of those characters and transported that player character to a new campaign, right? That I know they did this, right? But I don't know what the story is, because that is a secret story. That player character has a history and a legacy and momentum, and has gone on to that player character has new adventures that are occurring at a new table. That is a secret story, right? So these are the stories that the Dungeon Master never tells the Dragon Master. These are the stories that the Dragon Masters are creating with new Dungeon Masters, but never telling their fellow Dragon Masters. That this, and that person, I'm fairly sure, they have never said, I brought this player character from another table, right? Because most Dungeon Masters would throw a flag on that, right? So there are these secret stories of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And what I'm saying is that they're very important. Capture them, record them, make sure you are learning from them. And if you are a Dungeon Master and you don't have secret stories, you are doing it wrong. You are Dungeon Mastering wrong. Okay? If you are a Dragon Master and you have no secret stories, you are doing it wrong. Wrong. You are not meeting what you were called to do by Gary Gygax. You are not meeting his legacy. You are not Dragon Mastering right. Get good. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important, the most important thing, is when I hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful Fetch Millennium.